And I hope my audio is good. You see my audio, my video, my screen sharing. Okay. Today we're looking at facility management organization. We will be taking a look at all of those models, different types of models that we can deploy in the FM industry. If you manage facilities internally as a supporter of the core business, what kind of FM models can you deploy? If you manage facilities externally as a service provider, what kind of organizational structure will help you deliver that service excellently? So we're going to be looking at those, and we're going to be looking at some of the key data and information we need to have in place for effective facility management. So it's going to be all-encompassing in today's class. So FM organizational levels is something that we have talked about in at least one or two modules so far. I'm going to brush a little bit about it today. We're going to look at FM organizational models, components of organizational structure. We're going to look at integrated facility management and also total facility management. There are management structures for sourcing FM services globally and in Nigeria as well that we should learn about, know what the differences are, know what the major drivers of the models are, know the pros, cons, and risks associated with each of these FM organizational models. Starting with the resource impacts on performance and costs. By now, we all know that facility management is delivered at 3 levels: the operational level, the tactical level, and the strategic level. At the operational level, you're basically delivering day-to-day operations, day-to-day activities. So all your rosters come in here, all your inspection schedules come in here, all your maintenance and repairs work orders come in here. Your daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly reports. And all of the activities you do to manage the spaces, the assets, the equipment within them, the people you work with, your contractors, their staff and teams, your own employees, as well as the colleagues, the people you work with in the organization, your day-to-day interactions, communication, documentation, and all that, health and safety and the rest. They all come under the operational level. All of the contracts that you have in place, that you are supervising, that you are monitoring, their spending, their delivery of service, their service levels, you are reporting on their performance, is all part of the operational level. All of those rosters you put in place, the bit plan you put in place for security, for cleaners, and all whatnot that work on your site are all at the operational level. All your buying activities, procurement activities, like we learned about, all of them are here. So the whole process that takes place at the bottom of the big picture that we talked about, where you have the strategic facility planning framework. At that bottom of that, you have 2 key levels, the level of execution and the level of revalidation of strategy. They're the ones that happens or takes place at the operational level. So in essence, all the doing takes place at the operational level. If you look at the resources, the people, and the systems that go into that level, it is the largest, and that's why we use the triangle. At the bottom of this triangle sitting on its tail, we have the resources, people, and systems, highest, broadest, widest, largest at the operational level. On the opposite side, or parallel to this, is the performance cost efficiencies that are achieved if we are operationally focused. If you don't have any other level of activity, this is all you do as a facility manager, your performance in terms of cost efficiencies, even effectiveness, will be very low. So that's why you have that as an inverted triangles, standing on its head. Because no matter how well you know what and how you do at the operational level, without superior reasoning, without superior planning that answers why, that provides resources in such a way that there is a structure and order around what happens at the operational level, your performance is going to remain perpetually low and poor. Okay. What happens at the tactical level? At the tactical level, we are producing action plans. Action plans. If I'm putting together a budget for next year, for example, I am creating an action plan for next year. So that planning for the operational activities is what happens at the tactical level. If I have a project, what do I put in place to ensure that that project can be executed seamlessly? Those are happening at the tactical level. At the operational level, I do operations and maintenance activities, but those are drawn out of operations plans, procedures, processes that I have put in place at the tactical level. Systems with steps, guidelines for getting things done. At the tactical level, I plan all of the types of contracts. I execute all the contracts and make sure they're in place. I make sure people are hired and put in their rightful positions. I make sure there are ordering procedures for replacing goods on an ongoing basis, as an inventory to make the work smoother. So all of those activities are happening at the tactical level. It's for planning exactly how you will execute. If you have a clear picture of what you have planned, then your execution will become really easy peasy, right? Now, at a strategic level, what is happening? You are basically taking care of the high level decision making. Should we outsource or should we insource, for example? It's a big deal. Should we, what kind of policies should we put in place that will help us achieve our strategic objective as a corporation, as a company, as an organization? Those are the questions we're answering at the strategic level. If you, whether to deploy technology, whether to go sustainability route or whatever high level decision, because whatever decisions you take at the strategic level has answered all the why questions for the tactical level, has provided the framework and the model on which the tactical level can be executed, which is the planning. Okay, because it's after you have planned, you can now go down to operationalize the plan. But the plan cannot be created except you have strategies, long-term, high-level strategies, pre-approved by management. Okay, so at that level, you find requirement for resources and systems being the lowest, but the performance is the highest, because the impact of a well-thought-out strategy, the impact of the best kinds of policies, the impact of all of those high-level thinking and reasoning and looking into the glass to see ahead and creating so many scenarios and alternatives and exposing opportunities, threats, and so on and so forth, that takes place at a strategic level. Make sure everything we do at the tactical and the operational level are done seamlessly, produce the right result, measures the gap or the distance between what we actually achieved and what we had in mind to achieve. So this is a way to look at the jobs that you do. So know that if you are not having strategic planning, no matter how much you run kitty and kata at the operational level, you are going to be achieving very, very little. And that's the whole idea of understanding this resource impact on performance and costs. And then for you as a facility manager, where do you want your career to be? Because sometimes you talk about, oh, this is for the company and so on, but where do you want your career to be? There are people in jobs today that have been in those jobs for 10 years, 15 years. So I'm already thinking about retirement. They are so fixated with the operational level activities that they have been left there. Management had not considered any need to elevate them to the tactical and strategic level because they have refused to apply themselves to thinking and doing things at higher levels. So don't complain when people are brought from outside to take on higher level roles in organizations that you know from the palm of your hands. Activities that you can deliver without even thinking twice. For example, you are left at it because that is exactly where you focus your career and all your efforts and all your energy. And that can be a problem. In fact, it's a very big problem. So if you are doing your bits to rise from the lower levels, lower echelons of the FM practice, supervisors, foremen, technicians, so many of those positions that we hold as we start into the FM career, always be mindful. You cannot stay there. You will deliver work at that level, but you cannot stay there. Take a storekeeper that becomes so good at keeping stock that he can create effective forecasts on stock requirements for years to come, has already started thinking strategically, has already started elevating himself above the tactical level, who can set a reorder level, haven't looked at the cycle of approvals and the lead time for deliveries for different items, can come up with a spreadsheet that gives accurate, use accurate data to forecast the quantities that we use over a certain period, the turnaround time for our approvals, lead time for delivery, and correctly indicates a reorder level that if we have goods down to this level and we make our application and push the application through this and that processes and place an order, we'll have a restock by the time the goods we have in our storage is getting exhausted. That is the kind of thinking that takes you away from holding the store key. That's the kind of thinking that takes you up to becoming the facility manager in charge of the whole facility, because you have shown that you are not just dishing out materials. You are recording, you are tracking, you are analyzing the data that is coming out of that process, and you are making high-level decisions that makes the jobs of those who are levels above you easier for them. You are coming up with analysis, you're coming up with decision-making information that helps to make good decision to management. You will sit on that table very quickly, okay? You're able to do research. You're able to use the data you have, analyze industry data, do some benchmarking from the industry, come up with, analysis, executive summaries that help management to think and take positive decisions. You are moving your career upward. So don't get stuck with that. This is the job that I have been appointed. I've been told to just take the reading of the diesel, record it here, count the work orders that were done, write it here, And that's all I'm doing. Because if you're doing that as all you are doing, no problem. I mean, whoever employed you is happy you're doing it and you're doing it well. It leaves you there. Leaves you there. So start thinking about how to elevate your career, not just how to move your operations to become strategic in consideration and in planning, but how do you move as a person professionally? I'm sure we must have heard that famous story of two apprentices or workers of a retail grocery store owner that was always promoting Mr. A over Mr. B, and they were both hired the same day. You give Mr. A a promotion, higher pay, more benefits, and Mr. B comes to him and says, look, you know what? This is not fair. I'm going to resign and just leave. You don't appreciate me here. You keep giving Mr. A all these extra privileges and perks, and you don't give to me at all. It's not the same day we were employed. Are we not doing the same job? The employer said, you might both have been employed the same day, you might be doing the same job, but you're not doing it the same way. When we put them to a test, he sends both of them. Go into the market and find out whether a certain product was available for us to stock our shop and have goods to sell. Mr. B goes in, comes back quickly as possible to say, yes, sir, I found that product in the market. Has he done what he's been asked to do? Of course he has. He has not done anything more. He has done it exactly at the operational level, and that was it. Well, that's good. That's good enough for your pay grade. That's good enough for your level. That's good enough for where you are right now. When Mr. A comes back, he says, yes, the fruits we are looking for is available in the market. There are 11 merchants who are registered to sell that fruit. 7 have it in stock, 4 does not have it in stock. Out of those 7 that have it in stock, about 5 of them are having old stock and 2 are having fresh new stock. There seems to be a lot of pressure on these 2 to buy up their new stock. And I've discussed with them, and I think we can, be in line if we can give them a long-term order to take up a certain quantity guaranteed on a weekly basis from them. They will sell to us and they will lock that quantity in for us. We'll give them a premium to give us that kind of contract. And I think we should do it because this is the season for this particular sale. The boss looks at both of them, asks the Mr. B, you've come back with your own reports. Now you're hearing Mr. A's reports. Is it still the same? Are we still operating at the same level? Mr. B operates at the operational level. That's exactly what you've been asked to do. That is what you do. After all, it's not my father's business. It's a job that I have to put in my shoulder and things like that. All those kind of mindsets that you don't invest yourself in your employment is what keeps some people poor forever. It keeps them poor forever. In fact, in many cases, at some point in life, they would think, oh, I can do it better than whoever was employing me. Let me go and start a business. They fail woefully. In fact, the little they've made from that, like a Jessica and laissez-faire of operational mindset, they will go and sink it in and lose everything and get rich quick schemes. If you can think strategically, think as if you are a business owner, think with data, think with analysis, give results in metrics, things that can be measured and objectively ascertained, then you are elevating yourself away. So in looking at this chart, don't just see it as FM work, see it as my life. Who are those making it? Where are they right now in the industry? They are at the top. They are taking strategic decisions, okay? So what kind of FM organizational model can you deploy? This applies mainly to internal FMs. If you're managing for an airline, for a mall, for a school, for a hospital, this is for you. For organizations that have business units, that have different types of business units, like conglomerates where you have manufacturing, retail, hospitals, or hotels, all of those. The FM department in such an organization will usually not be a one type organization. It will be an FM organization that is customer driven, in the sense that the team, the structure of the team, the number of people, the types of skills, the whether it's in-sourced or outsourced that you deploy to one business unit will not mirror what you deploy to another business unit. So I won't even have the same kind of organizational structure for the FM team I send to a hospital compared to the FM team I send to an airport, for example, if they're in the same group. If I have to manage a group operations that includes all of those business units, okay? The custom unit, custom services, requiring fast response, flexibility, and so on, because you have to respond to the customer, which is that department. And what they actually need in terms of their objectives, what they want to achieve as a department or an organization, will be different from A to B. Even when I provide cleaning, as simple as cleaning is, I cannot provide the same service level agreements or service specification or scope of work for cleaning to a hospital and also provide the same to a hotel, for example. No, there will be differences. I can even alter designations and things like that just to ensure that I'm responding to, to that customer. The next organizational model you can look at is the office manager. The office manager is usually, most organizations don't see this person as an FM, right? Because you have a lot of other things that you have to do as an office manager. Usually, organizations that rent a single floor or 2 floors in a high-rise service building, for example. They have the FM. It's supposed to be FM, but a lot of his job is already assumed by the property owner for out of service charge. He's basically just coordinating what's going on, and if he has to manage internal maintenance and operations activities, he will probably not have employees working under him. So most things will be outsourced or contracted out to subcontractors who will come in every now and then to respond, to act on preventive plans and the rest. Okay, so that's the whole idea of an office manager. Most office managers will have additional jobs. Many will be finance clerks in addition, many will be receptionists in addition, many will be HRO assistants in addition, many will be admin officers, procurement, logistics, just a bouquet of activities to justify that position. And for those who start their FM career like this, there's often that tendency to become misled, not to think that they are professional facility managers. You're providing support services, you're a strategic enabler of the core business, but you don't even know it because the nomenclature or the designation you have there is something different. So that's one of the reasons why I hear people say, oh, I'm a customer service officer, I'm a logistics officer, I'm an admin officer, whatever names, corporate service staff and the rest. Don't be misled. You need facility management skills because that is a profession that enables the success of the organization that you're serving. Both managing people, managing assets are the things you are doing. That's the office manager. As organizations becomes large, sometimes you have one location, a very large campus, like a university campus, for example, or the headquarters of one organization that does not necessarily need to own multiple locations across the country. Everybody that works for them work in one location. That's the one location, one site facility. In many cases, this one location, one site are often owned facilities. Sometimes they are leased, but they lease the entire block of the facility. And they will have a team of facility managers. Often this team is in-house. They will still have some contractors, but they will have mostly in-house. They'll have a robust team to cover supervision of all aspects of the facilities. So that's the one we call a full service facility management team. And then one location, multiple sites is similar to one location, one site, but the only difference is that there's more geographical dispersion. So there is more spread of the locations. So instead of having one campus, like a university having 300, 500 buildings in one site, on the one location, one site model, if you have a bank with those same number of buildings, but all spread out across the country, there will be very different models you can run. For example, you may have a regional manager, kind of position, like as part of your regional structure in the multiple site location, one location, multiple sites option, but you may not have that in a one location, one site. You cannot call people area this and regional that when you are not, geographically spread out. And then for the multiple locations, region or division, like this is nationwide kind of spread, not the one city or one state spread that the one location, multiple sites is given. Similar, but the degree to which you centralize decision making is more when you have one location, one site. As you go to one location, multiple sites, you begin to create a system of decision making that is delegated down that hierarchy. So you don't end up doing everything at the center. You don't make all contracts at the center anymore, for example. When you get to manage this type of spread that goes beyond national boundaries, sovereign boundaries, it has become a more national operation. And the way the FM organization is modeled when you have multiple countries in your portfolio is very, very different, because there are HR laws that are different, there are political situations across countries, there are other kinds of trends like inflation, sociocultural issues to deal with, language barriers, so many things that needs to be considered. Even standard accounting and standards for making so many policies and procedures will be different from country to country. So that is, really, really more complex than all the ones we've talked about so far. But in all, a facility manager who finds himself in any of the situation should understand the breadth of decision making he has. As you are becoming more multinational, more multiple locations, you want to be able to delegate and allow people to take decisions at lower levels, not to hold everything up for you to decide and act on. So you have a facility to manage. You're managing the facility, and you're not sure what document requirements, what information you need to be able to manage it. This is what I call know your basics. These are the basic information you must have in place to be able to manage your facility. For you to be able to get a full control, a grip of the facility you are managing, you must have this information that I called your basics as a facility manager. Let me quickly add a few more co-hosts so that when one person drops off, others can be bringing them in and making them co-hosts. For you to fully understand why you are where you are and what are the expectations of you and what are the things you should put in place to ensure you can deliver that role, take this slide very seriously. You must know the business requirements of the organization you are serving. If you are the demand organization FM, it's paramount. If you are a service provider, the service provider, you also need to understand these requirements. What are the business drivers? what brings us money, what costs us money as an organization. You cannot be at the center of the profitability equation in an organization as one of the chief spenders and not have a full understanding. I have a friend who in a stock exchange. In less than 1 year, he could analyze complex issues around how stock exchanges run. He would talk to me about stocks and bonds and issuance and IPOs and derivatives, because these are the things that are serving. If there's an IPO, for example, the organization makes money from issuing that IPO. If there are transaction volumes on a daily basis, there's that crumb that drops for the stock exchange. So for him as an FM, hearing about transaction volumes on TV and on radio and reading this financial data means money or no money. You as an FM must understand exactly how the organization moves positively or negatively. What are the needs of the business? What are the constraints? How does it affect you if the currency is devalued further? Now, the MD is worried. The EDs are worried. The senior management team are worried. Unless you don't want to be part of that senior management team, be less concerned. Stay at the operational level. Don't think up. Because for you to become a senior management team at some point in any industry, you must have started understanding business requirements, business drivers, needs and constraints, and be able to project planned business changes. Be able to have at least some ideas so that when you are asked, you can share. Even when you are not asked, analysis you do from the FM standpoint or the FM side of the business, incorporating high-level understanding of what the organization is facing and how your recommendations from the various alternatives you put together are being justified by understanding of the current situation of the business will make a huge difference in your careers. Are there requirements to reduce costs? Do we have requirements to reduce our footprint in terms of square meters we cover? I've seen FMs battle to understand why management expect the cost to go down when we were in lockdown. Because we have said for years that footfalls, body heat in spaces, activities, we're flushing up and down, we are cleaning up space for people, is cost high. And then we have a whole year of lockdown and you expect the company to pick up the bills continuously. Something is not going on well. You are not thinking straight. If you are still surprised, the management expects the cost to go down. And then there could be unrealistic cost reduction expectations. Why? Because you as an FM are probably dealing in absolutes without tying the absolute figures of your costs and expenses to drivers of those costs. If I know that cooling that I provide is a cost item, what are the drivers to cooling costs? Number of people, types of lights that produce heat, the atmosphere out there, and so on and so forth. Can I create a system of tracking these, even square footage that I manage, tracking these metrics and being able to show management using the metrics that I'm doing well, because the energy performance, for example, or the unit rates for providing that service is actually dropping, even though the overall total is rising, because the drivers could be a productive driver or it could be a waste. If I identify a productive driver and I create lean systems to deliver all the results and make sure that driver can increase, my total should increase, but not proportionately. If I identify waste driver, because in every cost driver, for example, there are wasted, resources that are growing along with your growth in productive drivers. Isolate them, deal with them. So by the time you are reporting, your report makes sense. You're reporting metrics, IT plan, requirements, constraints, technology utilized. Know about your sites, their locations, their square footage, number and types of occupants, whether it's owned versus leased, other operation types, operations, customers being served. Just don't leave the data about the facilities you're managing to that spreadsheet where it has been kept, where it has been filed away in your computer. If this data stay in your mind, it will affect how you think and how you make decisions and how you analyze and how you bring up, suggestions and recommendations. Have it handy, know it. If there is a change in any of your site data, update. Because we could be having a discussion around water, for example, and we're talking about how your water cost is going up. You will feel guilty, helpless, not effective, or even useless if you cannot immediately tie into that discussion data on how your footfalls have increased. Because with every percentage rise in footfall, all services, in fact, all services, the ACs will work more and use more energy. You'll be more flushing and use more water in toilets. There'll be more cleaning and more man hours applied to cleaning, and so on and so forth, right? You need to be able to know all of this data so that you can make decisions, you can contribute to intelligent discussions that are happening, instead of going away feeling like a victim. Many of us even have facilities that we are in charge of. I always say, be careful how you use that word, I'm in charge. You're in charge of it. You're not 100% sure what is landlord's responsibilities and what is your own organization's responsibilities. You just keep doing everything and see service charge as money you pay without knowing what it's paid for. The landlord will simply say, hallelujah. You don't call me for anything because you're not taking the time to look at the management service agreements, right? So you must know the relationships. You must know who are the stakeholders. You cannot come to a facility and start talking about how good you are in creating standards across where you don't understand what each customer groups in that region are trying to is basic. If I'm managing one building that has mostly senior management, all top executives, and I'm managing two other buildings that have mostly middle management and lower executives in those buildings, my understanding of this difference, even in the same building, different floors, my understanding of this difference can help me create service levels that are satisfactory to all parties, that can be implemented and ensure that the top guys get the things they need to be effective and operate at a strategic level with results. So you must understand, it's not enough to know I have 10,000 square meters, 25,000 square meters. How does that total number of square meters break down? And then you must know the services. What services are you providing? Which one are you providing in-house? Which one is part of landlord's responsibility? Which ones are part of service charge? Which ones are you using outsource, call off contractors for, and those that have routine contracts in place? And then your staff and the staff of your contractors. How do they relate? How do they, correlate when delivering the services? If there are contracts in place, you must understand the terms of the contract. Many of us learn about the terms of contracts from our contractors. I have seen a facility management organization that have had some contracts in place for more than 10 years, and nobody in the organization can find a copy of the contract that was signed with the contractor. We had to go to the contractor to go and give us a copy of their contracts. And boy, how different it was from what we were doing at this time. We have verbally changed and changed and changed, and nobody has documented anything. So sometimes when you pop out new directives to contractors and they resist it, you probably think otherwise, but in many cases, proper documentations are not in place. You need to make sure that service levels are well documented. All the statement of works, which is the scope of work, special requirements such as the types of assets for different departments or units in the organization. You need to understand how they run, how they use them, or who uses them, and what are the specific unique features. I'm sure you don't want to be the facility manager when power goes out in the gym and your MD is on top of the treadmill, for example. He will remember you. He will remember you. Because when the chips are down and they mention somebody's in charge of power who's not done his job and this thing went off and I had to wait for 10 minutes or even have to pack and go home because I couldn't get power up to continue, or probably the machine did not reset properly and stuff like that, I will, you will be remembered. Whether for good or bad, you can now tell. So understand your facilities. Understand what's unique, what's critical for every aspect. Because that's how you apply the Pareto rule, Pareto principle, to say, for these ones, if I can keep my eyes on this and this, where most of my issues come out, I'll be 80% successful. That's like how you tie everyone. And then your costs. Your costs using metrics, cost per square meters, per occupant, all kinds of metrics for all types of services. And then mapped historically at those metrics levels. So you can compare how things are moving and you can forecast or project how future items will run. Okay? Understand accounting requirements in your organization. Because you spend a lot. And probably somebody in accounts used to receive the scribbled notes of how you spend the money and all those rumpled receipts you used to staple together and bring for them. You probably refuse to learn the various account codes that every expense is supposed to go to. When the chips are down, you have a lot of surprises. Many of us complain about being victimized in organizations, having issues with this person or that person, and not really. But the truth is that we are not on top of our games. We've abdicated. We are doing the barest minimum. We are not focusing. We are not pushing ourselves to learn more, use data more, analyze more, decide better, and create decision-making outputs. What about key performance indicators? Customer satisfaction index, service delivery model, workflow, work order backlog. We talked about the deferred maintenance log the other day. That is a key requirement to have in place as a basic facility management practice. Because if somebody were to engage you in a discussion on the elevator and say, look, I'm talking to MD and it looks like this payment are just coming from these clients, there's going to be some 10 million sent to the FM department to close out some of the things that they've been complaining about. Will you spend that money on the most apparent thing now, or will you have a prioritized defects maintenance, deferred maintenance log that you will use the money for the things that you have pre-reasoned, pre-analyzed, and prioritized as if money comes, these things that are choking us will be dealt with first. You won't end up changing interlocking tiles and painting the building again because you know exactly where you should go to. Are you tracking customer satisfaction? Do you even have a clue of how customers are perceiving the work you do? You know that as facility managers, one of the most important key performance indicator is the customer satisfaction index. And being able to get a sense of how customers view and rate our services. And having documentation of these objective measures, because this is your final judgment. Have I been doing well? I can say I've been doing well. What do my customers say? What issues are there on ground? Are there compliance concerns, regulatory authorities? Are there things we are not doing as a minimum to meet building code requirements, for example? We have issues with staff, motivation, union issues. Are there community issues? For some of our organizations, you have a big issue with how contractors are paid. If they're not paid on time, of course, you cannot deliver your service. Some of the things that came up in our last class. Can you document these issues? Because if you don't, bring to view these concerns, you will not be thinking about their solutions or possible solutions. You'll be living as a victim of the system, like we say. We'll take a little look at organizational structure. We're going to look at structure versus culture, level of centralization, chain of command, span of control, and all of the items listed in this particular chart. Every organization have the formal nomenclature. This is how we are structured. It follows different designations and different positions in the organization. And this structure could be line versus staff, or what we call vertical chain of command versus horizontal chain of command. All right. And then within the structure, there is an authority level for every position, every level within that structure. That is what we have on paper. That is what we as an organization has adopted as how we should be organized. It forms the way we are correlated, the way we interact, okay, formally. The organization also has a culture. Now, a culture is a way of life, a way of doing things. It describes the atmosphere around us, how we are. Culture usually evolves. It evolves out of two things. It evolves out of our values, our stated values, our objectives and goals, our structure. This forms the formal design or structure that we have put together as our organization. Now, the level to which we implement or adopt or execute what we have formalized in our structure, how we are true to what we say are our values, is what now defines our culture. So our culture can evolve out of certain leadership behaviors, the way decisions have been taken in the past. Culture can evolve out of certain influences from within the staff. And this can become very different. So if you hear of a very positive culture, there's closer alignment between the way things are done, the way we think, the way we take decisions, to what we have espoused as our values and our structure. Okay, if there is a huge deviation, we'll say there is cultural erosion, there is, poor culture, there is, all kinds of things that are negative regarding culture. So if you say I am this, and that is reflected in what you do, that's a positive culture. If it's not, if there are other things around it, then that is a negative culture. So for most organizations, you actually have to either get an external person to observe your culture, or you take a deep dive into getting everybody together to brainstorm on what you can define as your culture. It's not something you really espouse. What you espouse can be your culture if there's close alignment. Otherwise, it's not. The level of centralization, I talked a little bit about it earlier, talks about how decisions are held at the center or how they are dispersed to go to the radially to the other levels, lower levels. For organizations that run a central one location, large location, then of course you can keep all the decisions up. Even for some organizations where they have geographical dispersion of dispersal of locations, where you have additional sites well spread out, clusters and regions, for example, some organizations still maintain a centralized power base where decisions are taken from the center. Now, not all types of industries or all types of organizations can benefit from one or the other. The level of centralization has to adapt to your organization's strategic or corporate strategy, how you are meeting the needs of your customers. If taking decisions at the center is creating delays at the nodes and obstructing service delivery and creating disaffection with the customers, then of course you need to look at that and say, you know what, let's move certain decisions away from the center so it can be taken quickly and response can be swift. The chain of command and the span of control talks about our team structures. The chain of command looks at how many levels from top to bottom. And the span of control look at the horizontal view of how many people you have under you that reports to you. So every level in the organization, there is a span of control. A supervisor supervises how many. A coordinator supervises how many supervisors. A manager supervises how many coordinators. That is your span of control. And a span of control should not be too wide. So if you have too many people you have to appraise, too many people you have to write reports on, that you have to ensure that they have all they need to deliver, you might not be effective as a leader or as a manager, right? So we want to keep the span of control to a reasonable number. But to keep the span of control small, you now need increasing chains of command, which means vertically. So there has to be that balance between how high you want to go vertically to balance out the span of control. Because take cleaning, for example. I have in one site 100 cleaners, for example, and there are 20 of them on the external, and then there are 80 of them on the internal, and that looks like it's too much to have just 2 coordinators. Why don't I have, since a high rise, 8 cleaners per floor in the 10th floor building, let me have a supervisor at every floor so that I'll have 8 internal cleaning supervisors, and then I'll now have 2 external, maybe one for hardscapes cleaning and the other one for landscape, softscape areas. And I have 10 cleaning supervisors. Now, I had already had 1 manager of cleaning. Do I want the 1 manager of cleaning to handle all 10, or should I split that into 2 and have a certain number of supervisors reporting to one manager of cleaning and another set of supervisors reporting to another manager of cleaning. Now, those are the kind of things I'll have to keep balancing out because I want to reduce my chain of command as much as possible because of bureaucracy. You know how it is, talk to my boss, who talks to his boss, who talks to his boss, and information doesn't go up or comes from the top so slowly and distorted before it gets to the bottom. Okay, we want to reduce chain of command as much as possible. The flatter, the better for the organization in terms of effectiveness. But you don't want an unwieldy span of control. That balancing act has to be continuous. And so even in an FM team, while creating your organizational structure, think about how to manage a sizable span of control and ensure that your chain of command does not become too long as well. And then the line of staff management versus the functional, so structural model, they are aligned. So the line management is looking at top-down specialization that is vertical. So if we take the FM department and we create mechanical head who has only mechanical engineers and technicians for mechanical asset maintenance under him, we've created a line management structure, right? And that's also called a functional organization, where you have created a functional structure is the same thing, where you have created a top-down approach to relationships. It's vertical chain of command. And you are using that chain of command to increase specialization. So the mechanical guy, as he's coming down, is having HVAC. HVAC splits again into central, splits of window units, and then central units. And then having generators, is having, so on and so forth. It's just having different spread. And each person is specializing downward. That's how the line management works. The staff management, which talks about the matrix models, is horizontal chain of command, cuts across vertical chain. So if you have that line of mechanical, and you have another line of electrical, and you have another line of, maybe catering or sub-services coming down, and you now have somebody on the horizontal side whose job it is to use all of these services, then you are creating a matrix organization that is built out of that staff management. I'll show with some of these diagrams, the functional structural organizational model. Everybody is progressing down on one path. There's just one boss for each person. If you're the facility manager, each of these people report to you, and under each of these ones, there are those who report to them. It's strictly line of functional. On the matrix model, you now have certain functions that use up positions from every of the vertical lines. Okay, so you have project managers of different projects who have to have an accountant, have an IT person, have to have an FM, and so on and so forth. A HR person, a finance person, and so on, that can be on this horizontal axis and have either someone seconded to them from within the vertical lines. The best approach for facility management organizations would be to have the vertical lines as subject matter experts who don't necessarily manage the teams directly. Their own is to be consultants to the team, whereas the teams will report directly to the horizontal bosses, who are basically the ones responsible, accountable for the client. So if you have a facility manager at this horizontal matrix position, what that facility manager sees is what is delivered to the client. What is the final output to the client? A comfortable space. Comfortable space includes air conditioning, mechanical, power, mechanical, electrical, and so on and so forth. Being able to harness all of that to give one correlated, cohesive service is what is effective in facility management. So we don't normally preach that approach of having a vertical line that creates silos that can become that can obscure who is actually delivering the service to the customer, because the customer does not really know the difference between your electrical, your mechanical, your cleaning, and the rest. You're all supposed to be one team. So that, like I always say, there are two sides to this service delivery coin: those who are providing the service and those who are receiving the service. So there's no need breaking up all of that to try to get the customer to create a work order for this and go to that to ask for this and go to that to ask for that. No, one FM handles everything in a matrix format. Okay, now your delivery model could be in-house, 100% in-house, where you don't have too many contractors. Your strategic level is in-house boss. Your tactical level, all your site managers, you all operate as employees of the team. This model could also be used by a facility management contracting company. This company is trying to deliver services to the client, but instead of outsourcing various to subcontractors, they have all their teams handling everything in-house. This is typically what exists in more than 95% of organizations in Nigeria today. We have mostly in-house traditional delivery model. The FM is in charge. It's either employing supervisors and coordinators, some employ cleaners directly, and then you could also have a few contractors that are on call off, or a few contractors that are just for one task, which is directly supervisors. That's in-house delivery model. And then this can further be expanded when their scope increases to have the hard and soft service split. It's still in-house, it's still traditional model. And then if you start getting to the outsourcing point, you now talk about the first level of outsourcing, the integrated facility management model called the managing agents. Now, in the in-house self-delivery or traditional model, it doesn't mean that you do not outsource the services. What you do not outsource is the management. Management is held in-house. Services can still be done by small contractors here and there. At the level where you are beginning to outsource management, you are now entering the IFM space, where you can now say, you know what, I will only be taking high-level decisions, looking at capital replacement plans, looking at operational philosophies and procedures, looking at IT tools and systems to deploy, and so on and so forth. At the strategic level, I want to outsource all the other management to a support team. As I'm outsourcing to the support team, I'm not outsourcing my own management of the contractors. So that's where it starts from. The managing agent is a supervisor of the contractor, but the contracts are still held by the client. So if I'm the if I'm the FM of a certain bank now, for example, I have so many contractors who are providing services to me, but I don't want to have so many facility managers lining up the whole place. So I outsource that to a managing agent, so an IFM company. Supervise all these my contractors, recommend what kind of contract and SLAs to put in them, recommend them for payments, appraise them, their performance and all that. But the contract will still be held by me or directly by me. That's the first level of the IFM. That's the way of stepping out of the traditional model and giving us some control in terms of management supervision. But if I want to advance beyond that in the IFM level, in the IFM models, I'll go into a principal contractor approach, where that managing agent or IFM company will not be the one contracting directly with all the subcontractors. At this point, I want to reduce my own interference or direct relationship with the service providers, which means I'm giving out a lot more management than I was given before, out before. So the principal contractor now becomes the single point of accountability for all my services. If a subcontractor misbehaves in the IFM model managing agent approach, that subcontractor is my subcontractor. The managing agent will have some performance issues to deal with if it's failures, but the fact that these guys are still my contractors, I take the risk. But in the principal contractor approach, I don't have any business to do with that. So if your subcontractor does not serve you well, you can't pass that on to me as the client in an IFM model of principal contractor. So this is a very high level approach to outsourcing when I want to focus on my core business. I don't want my FM to be employing many people supervising up and down. The contractor supervises his people. We have a robust service level agreement that is enforced to the letter. And then you have the third IFM approach, which is the total facility management package. In this particular approach, the IFM company is not obligated to even work with subcontractors. It can provide its own cleaners, it can get its own license and get a security team, it can provide caterers and provide all directly. That's called total facility management. That's the highest level of outsourcing because the contractor has now integrated all the services in-house and no longer has that bottlenecks of dealing with third parties. From the TFM, which increases efficiency for the TFM contractor, all the way to the IFM one, which is the managing agent approach that shares the risk of the contractors or subcontractors between the client and the managing agent. We see various levels of efficiencies being brought in during the outsourcing process. So IFMs and TFMs are models of outsourcing management. So when you are outsourcing only services, we don't call that outsourcing. We still call that in-house traditional delivery model. Okay, so when you begin to outsource management, when you begin to reduce your people that are involved in management, supervision and coordination, then yes, we now say you are actually outsourcing your facility management. There are cost-saving opportunities, there are improvement of operational integrity, minimizing risk. We talked about the risk aspect, driving operational excellence, improving our processes, introducing best practices, improving business continuity, and so on and so forth, are some of the reasons why companies will want to outsource. If you outsource management, you focus on your core business, and you can now outsource, and you are now bringing in the expertise of the core business of that company you are bringing in to work for you. So you now have core business, core experts for your own side, and core experts for the support side. Major drivers of integrated facility management. We talk about the cost aspect, finance aspect, how it reduces costs, provides services at competitive price. I talked about this again in the procurement class, that you may think that the vendors will make profits and as such to cost you more. It may not necessarily cost you more because they have cost efficiency they have mastered over the years. And then you use your experts to deal with your core business. They bring in their experts to deal with the non-core business for you, okay? And then there's a lot of advantages from that. And then your customers, of course, should feel the difference. They should see the difference that when you are a banking organization, an oil and gas organization, the telecoms organization, we don't really expect you to have expertise in all these other services. Bringing those services in should give you the advantage. And then, of course, oversight and delivery of services, your company's expectations are easily met. Well, there are also risks involved, because if you get the wrong IFM company in, I've seen some companies that have outsourced management, pulled back in and moved from total facility management back all the way to managing agents. Of course, they are still outsourcing, but again, they probably felt and saw some shortfalls that made them to pull those services back in. And then talk about processes. Improve internal processes and promote innovation. You're talking with contractors who are probably served other organizations like yours, who know what the best practices are and know what the bottlenecks and challenges are and can help you with this, okay? So there are so many benefits to this process that I want you to read them up in your material. But you cannot outsource, and this is very important, facility managers, you cannot outsource your problem without trying to understand it. Let me even put it that way. So every time I hear of, oh, they're asking me to come and do proposal to manage facility management for them, and I ask, what kind of documentation do they have in place? For example, they don't have any documentation that describes, what services they need, what people and what people want to do in those facilities, what are the particular considerations and constraints I need to have, historical costs, the asset register for equipment list. They don't have maintenance record to know how the equipment have gone from where they are to where they were to where they are now. No contacts, information, no documentation to give me insights. They now expect me to come in there as a contractor because I'm looking for work, to come and start counting your toilets and your doors, measuring your floors, looking at your drawings and so on and so forth. Find out which of your assets are still under warranty by going online to put serial numbers and checking one by one. That's just too much work. If you need to have those documents and paperwork, organized, and you don't have it, get a consultant to come in and work with you to generate the information pack. Information pack is very critical before you start thinking of how to outsource, because you cannot outsource what you don't understand. What vendors and contractors will do basically is they will see your scanty information, one page, come and provide us facility management, we want cleaning, we want catering, we want electrical, we want AC. You don't even know how many ACs you have, what are the capacities. I should come and count them. No problem, I'll come and count. But what I'll give you as my quote is a risk-based approach of pricing, because there's so many unknowns. So I'll give you the highest price possible. So even when you are looking at the lowest bidder, it's either you're looking at someone who has mentally discounted all of your problems and wants to get in and refer them back to you when you are stuck or choked, or someone who has prices so high that no matter what you choose, you'll be able to deliver, worst case scenario is to replace a certain equipment or asset for you. And that's what you don't want. And then you don't also just wake up and say the new contractor is on ground, they're taking over. No, there must be a transition process. Communication, carefully planned to engage your internal users, and also engage those who are leaving to ensure that incumbents does not go away with information that will be needed by the one being onboarded. Change management plan is put in place. Sometimes, especially for those of us who have multi-tenanted environments, we can have resistance to change from among the stakeholders, even from among FM staff who are thinking that their jobs are being threatened. Okay, so many things need to be planned well in advance. So it's not enough to want to outsource and then just look for people who will come and scope and take over your job. You need to look at this list carefully, including a risk management plan. What can go wrong? Just brainstorming in syndicate sessions, what can go wrong with your team, and coming up with, measures and documenting all of these things. We talked about all of these drivers, just highlighting them again. Let's have your questions. This is the end of our lesson for today. Olufemi, you can ask a question.
Good afternoon once again, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
The idea is this. My question is, in a situation whereby the facility guy had to come up with all of this information, I was the same person that talked about asset register, which told me to start up. I don't know if you remember.
Yes.
And so in a situation whereby I had to create there was no document. I told you about my building being one way or the other. The owner is facility management client, so I don't know if he has an underground work he does. So, but it's not been making it easy for me. But each time I put it to him, it makes it look like we're fine, we're fine, we're fine. So even when I create these documents, when I have these old files, I don't know. It seems like it's not what he wants. I don't know if he has a background work. So it's been something that has been wanting me to even leave the job. But one way or the other, it keeps sounding like he wants me there. But for me, it's not making the job easy for me. Like you said a whole lot about me today, a whole lot about me and how we've been dealing. So how do I make him understand how important this could be? This should be rather. I don't know if you understand me, sir.
I do. Okay. So relevance and alignment is very key, right? The facility you are managing right now, somebody is taking decisions on a daily basis.
Which is the MD, yes, sir.
It may not be you, maybe the MD, right? Now, your focus in doing this data acquisition, data analysis, and making recommendations that are objective is to make that decision-making process for him easier. Yeah, there are certain decisions that have not produced the best results. But as managers or owners, many of us will not really care. We'll just move on, we'll get our money back. If I spend extra 2 million here and it sounds like a waste, it doesn't matter, right? I just miss it. I just get the money from another place and cover and move on, right? But like you that. as my next in command, for example, if you can, before it gets to the time for me to make that decision again next time, that could be the same decision, you have generated data and advised me, right? And not only
on how best to take.
Exactly, proactively, not trying to argue with me when I made up my mind. Before I even reach that point when I'm thinking about it, you have generated data, you've analyzed, and you have recommended well in advance. Because if you come at the time when I've already made up my mind, your data is usually, I may not look at it, right? But if I've not made up my mind yet, when I'm still open, I'm still thinking of that thing's going to happen next quarter, your data is useful. It helps me because your recommendation, I will now look at what you have put together. Then how you present that data and that analysis is also very important. Not too plenty grammar and too many pages that I don't want to read. An executive summary with, maybe there's a 1 page with all the information and 3 or 4 pages with more explanation and data will sway me, because when I look at the front and I'm not convinced with the analysis, and I look at the back pages, I say, oh, well, this guy has thought through a lot. He's gathered a lot of data to support this, right? So, yes, so there's a lot of work that goes into changing some kind of bosses. It's not something that you approach. It's not something you approach with kid glove. Not something you approach mildly. You have to put in a lot of hours. You have to put a lot of work into this. You have to generate so much documentation and data that you become so good that at some point, yes, at some point, he will begin to make less and less decisions. He start leaving things for you to decide. He will start saying things like, okay, when you are done, just give me the outcome. Just be reporting outcomes to me.
That happens in some cases. It happens
yes,
in just some cases.
A few cases. You can transition all cases over time. So you get more and more empowered because one, he sees they are not making decisions shabbily. You know all those, I feel like we should do. A lot of us do those things. We want to advise management and we are feeling like, don't feel like it's a criminal word to use. You have to have data to back up that feeling. You understand? Oh, this thing breaks down all the time. I hear from FM, it breaks down all the time. It disturbs too much escalations coming out of this equipment. And you cannot even say, this is how many times it broke down last month. These are the number of complaints that have come in, and this is how these complaints have been dealt with. A small table that shows that I've been tracking these complaints, just throw that in to support that this thing, the frequency of breakdown is no longer sustainable. Look at the data that backs that up. We make a whole difference. You understand? So that's what we should be doing. think about the kind of data you can start putting together now to support his decision making. Over time, he will lead the decision for you, and you have moved from operational level to tactical up to strategic when he begins to leave things for you.
Thank you very much. That's why I'm here, and I'm really improving now.
You're welcome. Good
I
to hear
appreciate
that.
it.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank
Well done.
you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our lesson for today. You guys all have a good evening. I'm not teaching on Friday, and there's no Saturday class for those who come for the physical class, okay, because of the marathon. Have a good weekend. See you on Monday. Most likely I'll be teaching again on Monday, okay? Bye-bye.
All right, bye,
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Paul.
Yeah, bye-bye.
So what you mean, sir, is that there's no class on Friday, sir, if I'm correct?
No, I'm not teaching. The training
Oh.
department will tell you who is teaching. And they will
It's
tell
all
you, if there's no class, I would have known.
Okay, so sir, so what happens to the physical class? What happens?
That class is moved up. So that physical class is going to have one like that moved up. We'll get it done eventually, but not this Saturday.
Okay, so thank you.
But
Sir.
all assignments, all assessments are due. There's nothing like we didn't hold a physical class, therefore you were not on the online class.
Okay.
So
Okay.
please, all of them are due, okay?
All right,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.